Have you ever stepped in it? You know what it is, right? I sure have. We're talking about the mistakes that we make in life, the things that we wish we knew maybe at a little bit younger age. Oh man, you're going to love my next guest. Chad Burmeister wrote the book, Oops, I Stepped in My Poop. Chad, welcome to the show.
It's so good to be here, right? Don't we always? And that phrase comes from a time when I was with my son where we were fishing and we got a fish on the line. And literally he takes 2 steps back and he goes, Dad, oops, I stepped in my poop. And then he would never wear those shoes again. So I've used that story through life where, hey, when you run into the buzzsaw of life, what do you do about it? And it's how we react. And so that's why we put the book out, and it's being shipped to shelters. It's being shipped to kids' place. I mean, it's really, really taking off. And I'm just excited to be here to share more about that and our mission.
I love it. What is the overall message? Because it's a child's book. What is the overall mission that you're hoping parents can share with their kids at a lot earlier age than what I learned some of these things?
Well, there's two main points in a letter that my grandfather sent me when I was in 8th grade. And I just went through confirmation class, and he writes in handwritten letters. This was important to him. And he said, there comes a time in a grandfather's life when he has to write a message to the grandson. And so he says, number one, love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, and soul, and with all your might, right? So heart, mind, soul. Some people are built to focus on heart. Others are mind. Others are soul. And so what I heard in that, now that I'm getting older and wiser, is that you have to be conscious of it with your might. You have to work on it. It doesn't just automatically happen. Heart, mind, soul. Number two, love your neighbor as yourself. And your neighbor could be, we're selling our house right now. It could be the people that are moving into our house. It could be someone you see at a hotel. It could be someone who is behind the register of McDonald's. Every single person is your neighbor, and they're all one of one. And as the shirt says, they all matter. You matter. You matter on an individual basis. So that's the point of the book, is when you face the buzzsaw of life, when you face the challenges, are you loving the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, and soul? And you could say, sometimes you can replace God equals love. So if you have a challenge and you've just said, look, when I was younger, I just didn't go to church. I never heard about God. Well, for you, if love is a better word for you, then be love, right?
Because God is love and love is
God
God.
is love and love is God.
Yeah.
And that's the trick that I've discovered over the last 48 hours, let's say.
Dude, you are one of the busiest people I've ever met. And it's all because you're doing like kingdom work. You feel like there's too much to be done in too short a time to share people and tell them about Jesus.
Yeah. Well, and tell them about love, right? John Denver wrote a song called Perhaps Love. And I found a YouTube video where he said in 1983, it was his favorite song. And he said it was his favorite song because he was driving from San Francisco to LA, and he had just lost his dad not too long ago. And so he was in the pain. And then he thought, all you fine people I get to meet and see all of you one of ones. Like, he's amazed by humanity.
Wow.
So when he says, perhaps love is like an ocean, perhaps, and he just goes through, and it's all of the perhaps. Some people don't know love. Some people think love is this. Some people think love is that. Whatever love is to you, whatever God is to you, that's how it shows up. Understanding how it shows up for you in feelings, in seeing, in touching, that's what you got to lean into. So, yeah,
Chad, I love the way that you see when you talk about one-of-ones. I mean, you see people as Jesus sees us, as God sees us, and that's individuals. We're not like a mass to him. We're ones. Matter of fact, you've spoken before about a friend named Robert who has a really deep, story that's brought you a lot of wisdom, and you're sharing that. Would you talk about that?
Well, yeah, Robert is one of the grandfathers, if not the grandfather, of the mindset piece. So if you think about the three, heart, mind, soul, when it comes to mind, there's nobody better. He can analytically look at this and see what's going on inside of a person's head and help them wipe the slate clean, complete your past, tell the truth about your current reality, and live a better story. Now, that's his one-of-one. He literally is one-of-one in the world at this moment, right? Dr. Wayne Dyer is probably the most comparable. So, however, now In addition, I don't want to say however, in addition, there's someone else who brings the heart side, who's a one of one in heart. There's another person who's one of one in soul. So what's important, what I can see is weaving those three things together. And it's hard for the person who's the strand of the mindset, because it's like, hey, I've gone through life. I've been very successful with the mindset strand.
Right.
Why do we need these other two strands?
Right.
You know? And so that's been some of the aha moment. The other thing, it's been prophesied that a lot of people are going to stand up at a certain time. And I think that's now, and say, I am God. And let me be clear.
Wow.
A couple days ago, I started to feel like, oh, I'm like Jesus. And then I'm like, wait, I can be Jesus. And you go, whoa, time out. I'm going to write a book called Be Like Jesus. We can be 5 nines of reliability. Meaning, if you look at it, or 7 nines even, right? Let's get as close to being like Jesus as we can.
Right.
But let's also say there is one God. He sent his only begotten son named
Right.
Jesus to die for us on a cross. And he took away all of our sins of the world, wiped them clean. So you are perfect. And so that's where I was like, wait, you are perfect today in this moment. There's nothing going wrong. The minute you step out that door, and you riding your Peloton bike and you see an image of somebody and they zoom in on her backside and you take a look, you've just crossed the line.
Right.
And you sinned. So you need to go, whoa, bring it back to the center, get rid of the bike, or do the New Zealand ride, and don't let those images, if that's something that hits you between the eyes, you got to be able to go, I got to get to 5 nines. You're never going to be God. You're never going to be Jesus, but you can be like Jesus.
So take those temptations out of your life, be aware of them, which is part of what your plan is, your message is be realistic, know what's real, and get rid of those temptations so that we can be more Christ-like.
Yes, that's right. It's so easy when you really just look in the mirror and people reflect back to you who you are. Yeah. My recent one was, Chad, you're not listening. And I'm like, what do you mean? I'm like a great listener. Well, my wife even, I'm like, really? And I'm leaning in with her. She goes, Chad, you listen, but you listen for what you're going to talk about next. Because I'm a salesperson.
Whoa.
So I have to reflect on that and say, okay, I need to listen for what you need, not what I need.
I want to go back to the you matter. It just keeps going through my head because it's a time that it's so easy to just be, in the background of all the noise and the news and the things that are going on and COVID and whoa, we matter. Your soul matters. This is the most important work we have, right?
Yes. Well, the shirt that I'm wearing today, funny enough, randomly, because I didn't plan it, and that's just how things happen. Right. These God moments when you just pay attention, you go, what? And so Daryl Stinson is a friend of mine, and Daryl was getting frustrated. He's a very tall African-American individual, a suicide survivor, and he helps coach people when they don't make it to the NFL or they blow out a knee or whatever happens. And he's there to help catch them. He shows God's love. So he came up. I saw this one day, You Matter shirt. And I was like, oh my gosh, you can't argue with that. Yeah. Like if someone tries to say, whoa, that's bad. No, actually it's not, because by the way, you also matter, and you and you and you love your neighbor as yourself, love your enemies. Like that's the hardest one. But guess what? When you lean in even on your enemies, woof, things change.
They do. They not only change for the person that you're praying for, but they change your heart, because praying for your enemy is a hard thing to do, and it changes you. Chad, let's talk about some of the business things that you're involved in. I was going to try to keep this under 10 minutes, but you're just so on fire with so many things. I don't want to cut that off. Like 77 Pray. Let's talk about that.
Well, so the app came out because my son was badly burned in a grease fire in his apartment. 2nd, 3rd degree burns, face and hands. So when you get the call, you rush to the hospital. My wife rushed to the ambulance, and we both met 3 hours later. And you're just wondering, he said, half of my face has been badly burned and may come off. And you're like, how do you process that? So all you can do is turn to faith. It's in these buzzsaw moments that you turn to faith. So we get there and he looked okay. We're like, oh, okay, this is as bad as I thought. Woohoo, yippee-doo. A week later, it went from bad to worse. And because it puffs up, you can't see through the eyes. They had to scrape his face off and both of his hands every day in a pond of water, right? They really took a metal brush, and scraped off face and hands. So in a week, you're like, what's going to happen? Well, then they have a new treatment. They take only about 2x2 off your thigh. They mix it up in something. It's almost like a spray paint can it's called ReCell. They spray it on your face and arms and everywhere that he was burned. And within a week after they took the gauze off, it was a miracle. There's no other way to describe it besides a miracle. And that's because I prayed for that. My mom prayed all night of the surgery, and a miracle happened. So now when you look around, you're like, God, what other miracles have I been missing out on?
Yeah.
I want to work for you, God Inc. How do I work for you full time? So we're in the process of converting the company from its old name to the new name, which is Living a Better Story Media. And our goal is to help people who've had pain, found God in that pain, and want to tell their story to the world. They just don't have the resources, skills, or etc. We want to give them that, gift them that. Now there's different options and plans that can say, hey, we'll give you $30,000 worth of value in return for 51% ownership of your company.
Right.
And then once you pay it back, because we're going to help you make some money and turn your story into monetization, then we'll bring it down to 10. It's 51 at first, because God's going to own it at first.
Right.
But once you get there, then you get 10%. And we're partnering with people like you, people who help with websites, people who help with marketing. My company does really good with outbound. So guess what? That's what Living a Better Story Media is going to be all about.
How can people get a hold of you?
The best way is my new email address, which is chat@livingabetterstory.org. And I'm happy to talk with anyone, anytime, because you matter.
Chad, thank you. Have a great day.
God's peace.